Hi, I'm Yana. Welcome to my channel. I've been living in the countryside for a while now, and there are a few things that have really surprised me about this lifestyle. Because when I first moved here, I had a very different idea of what my life was going to look like. We live about 100 kilometers from the city, which for us is roughly a 2-hour drive. And honestly, when we first moved, I thought we were going to feel isolated. I thought we would see our friends less. I thought our family would visit less. I thought we would probably have to get used to being on our own most of the time. But that actually turned out to be almost the complete opposite. And that wasn't even the biggest surprise. The biggest surprise for me has been how much calmer I feel, and I don't think I fully realized how stressed I was when I lived in the city. So I wanted to talk about some of the things that have changed for me since moving here. Not necessarily things that are better for everyone, just things that I've personally noticed. So let's start with probably the biggest one. The first one is I didn't realize how stressed I was until I wasn't anymore. I am the kind of person who constantly has something going on in my head. Even when I'm physically doing nothing, my brain doesn't really stop. I'm thinking about what I need to do, what I forgot to do, what I should have done, what I need to do tomorrow, and what could go wrong. Here it's different. Not because I have less work, actually, I think I have more physical work than I used to. There's gardening, but my brain feels completely different. Because when I'm working in the garden, I'm thinking about what I'm doing right in front of me, and that's it. My hands are busy, and somehow my brain finally gets quiet. And I think I really missed the feeling of not thinking, not planning, not analyzing, not constantly worrying about something. There is something very satisfying about doing physical work and actually seeing the result. Like when you plant something and then you watch it grow. The result is right there in front of you. And that's something I was missing in my life. There is also something about the landscape here. I really love being surrounded by greenery. I love nature. I love looking outside and actually seeing trees, plants, grass, the garden. And because I enjoyed it so much, even the boring things don't feel quite as boring anymore. Like in an apartment in a city, you clean your kitchen and then you look around and that's it. You're still in your apartment, the same four walls here. Even the most ordinary things are surrounded by this amazing landscape. You can look at the trees, you can see the garden. And I really enjoy the birds singing. I really underestimated how much my surroundings affect my mood. It's not necessarily that your problems disappear when you move to the countryside, but the environment you're doing all of those things, it can completely change how you feel. And for me, that's been a huge difference. The second one, I thought we'd become isolated, but somehow we see people more. This one really surprised me. As I said, we're about 100 kilometers from the city. And when you say we're moving for 2 hours away from the city, it sounds like you're moving really far away. At least that's how it felt to me. I thought our friends would say that's too far, our family would probably visit less, and we'd have to make much more effort to see everyone. But in fact, our friends and relatives from the city actually want to leave the city and come here, and I completely understand why. Because when you're living in a city, you can sometimes get so tired of being surrounded by people, traffic, noise, buildings, and constant activity. You don't necessarily want to go somewhere expensive. You don't necessarily want to go on some big trip. You just want to sit outside and have a barbecue with your friends. Yes, we're lucky that we also have a beach not too far away, so obviously that makes it even more attractive for people to visit us, but honestly, I don't think the beach is the main reason. Even without the beach, I think people would still come because there is something about leaving the city for a day or two that people really seem to crave. And the funny thing is, I feel like we're actually seen more of our friends since moving here. There are people we hadn't seen in a really long time, and suddenly we're seeing them. Because when everyone was technically nearby, we always assumed we'd see each other later. But here, when people make the effort to come, it becomes an actual event. The next one, some of my everyday expenses actually went down. And I'm not talking about some huge dramatic savings, it's actually the small things that started adding up. Water. When I lived in the city, I used to buy drinking water. The tap water where I lived wasn't something I really enjoyed drinking, even with a filter, so I usually preferred to buy good quality bottled or artesian water. And it wasn't very cheap. Here it's completely different. We have a well on the property and we pump water from the ground. So for things like washing dishes, showering, cleaning, watering things, and all of the technical water that you use every day, we don't have to pay for a municipal water supply in the same way. Of course, the pump uses electricity, so technically I can't sit here and say it's completely free. That wouldn't be true. But still it's cheaper. And then there's drinking water. There is a natural water source not far from us, and we can collect water there. Also, we have our own herbs, tomatoes, and berries. We have this huge wild plum tree that basically does its own thing. We have plenty of mulberry trees. We also have grapes that don't require that much work either. Because if you move somewhere where there are fewer restaurants, fewer shops, fewer things happening around you, you might think you would get bored, but I honestly don't. I don't think I've ever been bored here. There is always something to do. For example, today I spent a big part of the day putting little bags over our grapes to save them from birds. And the thing is, I really enjoyed it. Because I'm working with my hands, I don't feel like I need to constantly entertain myself. We also try to spend as little as possible on gardening supplies by reusing things whenever we can. For example, there are local shops and delivery points where people are often happy to give away cardboard boxes that they don't need anymore, and we can use that cardboard in the garden. We are using it to cover the soil and suppress weeds. It sounds simple, but even that becomes a little project. You have to remove all the tape from the cardboard, then you take all these pieces outside, lay them down, secure them, make sure they don't fly away, and I'm planning to cover some of it with agricultural fabric so the cardboard stays in the place. And it's the same thing with our child. We don't have to constantly buy new toys or find new entertainment. There is just so much to do here. We have a trampoline, we have a pool, there is sand, there is a beach nearby, there is a little balance bike, and he can ride around outside. There are cats and dogs. He can play with our cats and dogs. And because we're pretty social here, there are always people coming over too. Even my clothing expenses have changed. I don't really buy new clothes while I'm here, and honestly there is a very practical reason for that. We're constantly working outside, everything gets dirty, so most of the time I'm wearing clothes that I don't mind getting dirty or damaged. And ironically, both my husband and I have gained some weight, so I've reached the point where some of his old clothes actually fit me, like oversized, but still they look okay. So I don't even have to buy myself something new. Number 4, I feel healthier mentally and physically. This is another really important one. I've already talked about stress, but I think my overall health has changed too. And I want to be careful here because I'm only talking about my own experience. I'm not saying that moving to the countryside is a medical treatment for anything, but I definitely feel better. Mentally, I feel calmer, and physically, I'm moving much more throughout the day. I do find it easier to make myself exercise here. There are fewer distractions. I'm already outside, and I don't have the same temptation to sit down and start scrolling. That's probably one of the biggest changes I've noticed. My screen time has gone down. Because when you're outside and there are things happening around you, your phone just becomes less interesting. There is a lot more sunlight, like vitamin D, and I personally feel like I have more energy and just feel better when I'm spending more time outside. And there is something about eating something that was growing outside a few minutes ago that makes you appreciate food differently. So notice how much my child is outside, and this is probably one of the things that makes me happiest. I can see how much he enjoys being here, riding his bike. and constantly moving. He's very active child. So please tell me in the comments where you're watching from and whether you would choose city life or countryside life, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications. If you want to see the next videos, please let me know if we need a part 2. Hit the like button, and thank you for watching. See you next time in the next video. Bye!